Washington, where former President Donald Trump is expected to be arraigned today following his third criminal indictment. Trump is set to appear at a federal courthouse in the nation's capital this afternoon. Security, of course, ramped up at the court and across Washington ahead of today's hearing. The former president faces 4 felony charges related to his alleged efforts to remain in power following his loss in the 2020 election. So joining us now is CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane, as you can see, right outside of the courthouse there. So he's scheduled to appear in the court around 4 o'clock. So we've got several hours to go. Can you give us a sense of what will happen at the arraignment?
It's going to take just a few minutes. But to be clear, I think this is worth emphasizing. This historic moment, this historic proceeding is going to be largely invisible to America. The U.S. Secret Service will escort the former president to this courthouse. They'll bring him through an underground garage that is out of public view, not accessible to photographers. Then he goes inside this hulking 6th-floor courthouse where cameras are prohibited. Then he exits back out. And he has the capacity when he leaves here to hold his own event somewhere else and control the optics and control the visuals. What happens inside when he gets here? He'll enter through that garage. There's a private elevator that goes up to the 1st floor area outside the U.S. Marshal's office. He'll be processed there, likely some fingerprinting and some record keeping. They won't take a booking photo of him. They didn't take one in Florida. And when I asked why, the marshals told me, we have enough photos of Donald Trump. If for some reason we needed to find him, there are photos already available. Then he goes to the courtroom itself. It's courtroom 22 in this courthouse, one of the newer courtrooms, where he faces the magistrate judge in a proceeding that they do every day here. They have initial appearances and arraignments for felony defendants a dozen times a day. They have quite a bit of muscle memory. This should move efficiently.
So how, the fact that we're not seeing him during the day today robs, I guess, the country and the world of that historic moment, at least in the public sphere. People like yourself will be there to document it for us and tell us about it after. Stay tuned for live coverage of that throughout the day. But in essence, he gets to control the narrative, I suppose, a little more, because we're anticipating that later tonight he'll come back to his golf course in New Jersey, his summer home, and be able to address his supporters in that way.
He's been posting ahead of part of the reason that we even know what's happening with him is because he's been posting on social media and sort of crafting the narrative, as you put it. Whether it's working or not, I don't know. But can we talk a little bit about the way in which the former president has kind of gone out of his way to try to get ahead of the narrative here?
This is the 3rd time out of 3, Anne-Marie, where Donald Trump gave the first indication of a criminal investigation or looming criminal charges. Remember, he announced that target letter he received July 16th. We confirmed it in short order after, but he's the one who revealed it to the world. Nearly 2 weeks later, he is finally charged with 4 federal felonies. He's doing so much of this on his own terms, even though he's clearly not being prosecuted on his own terms. It wouldn't be a surprise at all. In fact, it would be a shock if he did not make some type of appearance before cameras before the evening is over, but he gets to control the terms of that. He can do it at the location of his choosing. He can do it in the context of his own choosing, and he can use this to add another adrenaline shot to his campaign and to his fundraising, which we saw after the charges were filed in Manhattan and charged in Florida.
And as I understand it, Ed, he's going to need to sort of turbocharge that fundraising machine.
Yeah.
A lot of money going into these PACs, but a lot of money coming out, too.
That's right. He's been burning it up, spending it on lawyers. Now, Scott, you're there in front of a familiar backdrop, at least to loyal news viewers. That's the Pettyman Courthouse there, only about a block or 2 from the Capitol, sits between the Capitol and the old Trump Hotel there on Pennsylvania Avenue. But we can see behind you metal barriers have been put outside the courthouse. D.C. police coordinating with the Secret Service and other agencies. Give us a sense of how the Capitol is preparing for this unique moment.
Washington, D.C. is accustomed to moments where they have to secure large swaths of the district. There are police barricades here. There are a number of federal agencies. You have the U.S. Marshals who control the courthouse. You have the U.S. Park Police and the District of Columbia Police who help the city. And the U.S. Capitol Police are just a couple of blocks away. And oh, by the way, the Secret Service is going to get involved. I stood in a 2-hour line when the doors opened to get to my seat in the courtroom, but people camped out here overnight to get in that line. This is the type of interest a president appearing for a court appearance draws, but also there's a recognition that this is the only place to see it, is in person. There's no television. The lines were long, the security's intense. We expect any number of protesters and counter-protesters, as is commonly the case at these hearings. But this is a city that is quite accustomed to major events and major security protocols. But let me just add this for you trivia fans, and Ed, that obviously includes you. If I were 49 years older, I'd be standing here in front of the Watergate trial at the same courthouse in the same media position. This is the same place. It is accustomed to history.
Yeah, that's a good observation and a good bit of trivia. I want to ask you about something else. Unlike the other two arraignments that we've seen the president attend, this one is taking place, and as I said earlier, not too far from the scene of the crime. You know that Donald Trump has suggested that this whole thing be shifted somewhere else. His suggestion is West Virginia, I think it was, right? Yep. Can we talk about the likelihood of something like that happening? The concern about the fact that, indeed, this is happening in Washington, D.C., just a few blocks away from where rioters took over the Capitol building.
Glad you asked, because when the inevitable change of venue motion is filed here, and it does seem inevitable in this case, as Trump's lawyer told Ed yesterday morning, it's likely to fall on deaf ears, because there have been dozens and dozens of January 6 riot defendants who filed that same type of motion. You know how many have succeeded? Zero. They have all failed. They have all made the argument that the District of Columbia jury pool is too biased because they live at the scene of the crime. They work with people, their neighbors, their friends, their aunts and uncles work at the Capitol or near the Capitol and can't be trusted to be objective. And the judges have thrown that out, saying we have an enormous jury pool here, nearly 1 million people. There's a jury selection process specific to make sure that there's no biases among the jurors. And what's more, if you commit a crime or you're accused of a crime in a certain part of America, in a certain city, district, or state, you are to stand trial there, not pick your own venue elsewhere. But I'll note this because you say you can see the police barriers behind me, the little bike racks. I'm about 100 feet from where the bike racks were toppled at the Capitol January 6th. It's right here. This is where it all happened. And this is where the newest defendant, Donald Trump, the latest of 1,100 January 6 defendants, will face a judge today.
And there are actually a handful of those defendants currently still scheduled to have hearings today in Washington, right?
There are several on the calendar, including a former Chicago police officer charged for January 6th activities, and a former Bob's Burger actor, Jay Johnston, charged with January 6th activities and crimes. We'll see if that remains on the calendar. They've been thinning the herd, Ed, taking stuff off the calendar, pushing it back to next week to make things easier logistically today. Wouldn't be surprised if everything else gets cleared off the docket, just as happened last month in Miami. They took the whole courthouse and emptied it because Donald Trump's going to be there, which begs a question. What happens when there's a trial? Do you just shut down one of America's busiest courthouses for weeks or months on end?
Yeah.
I know, that's what I said but 4 o'clock is the worst possible time in Washington, D.C. to have a tremendous motorcade shutting everything down.
It's the summer. But before we go, Scott, we should point this out because you made a good reference to this earlier. When we talk about team coverage, we're not kidding. We had 3 CBS News personnel there in line overnight in order for Scott and others to be in there later today as part of our coverage. This is what all news outlets have had to do in anticipation of this. We don't do it because it's, entertainment. We do this because this is history. We've never had a former president walk into a federal courthouse in Washington, one that, as Scott said, has seen so much, to face charges like this. And so, we and everybody else is taking this seriously, and we'll be here throughout the day to provide the updates. So, Scott, thank you for that. And coming up at our noon Eastern hour, our Lana Zacco's one-on-one with Congressman Byron Donalds, Republican of Florida, to talk about Donald Trump's arraignment. He has endorsed Trump in the 2024 race.
So after concluding its investigation, the January 6th House Select Committee made several criminal referrals, some of which were incorporated into Trump's recent indictment. Last night on America Decides, Major Garrett asked the panel's chief investigative counsel, Timothy Hafey, if the indictment was as broad as the committee thought it would be. Listen to what he said.
It reads very much like the Select Committee report. My guess is there are additional facts beyond the indictment that the special counsel's team has developed. There certainly are other criminal charges that could have applied, but I think he has picked the two that most closely fit the facts: obstruction of an official proceeding and conspiracy.
Well, Heafy went on to say that there is ample evidence from the former president's own mouth of his intent to lie about the 2020 election loss. Our political show, America Decides, will have team coverage of the arraignment of former President Trump later on today. The CBS News special report starts at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and America Decides streams at 5 Eastern.